Greetings. Greetings, and welcome to Storytime with Dr. Helen Tinsley. I hope all is well today. Happy and blessed Tuesday, and I'm happy to be here to share stories with you again today. So, let's begin. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine in the stories that I read every day. Welcome to day 86 of Storytime with Dr. Helen Tinsley. We are continuing in our journey through the People Could Fly American Black Folk Tales. And hi, I'm Carol, and hope you enjoyed this story. Again, this chapter is Carrying the Runaways and Other Slave Tales of Freedom. So, this story is how Nehemiah got free. In slavery time, there were smart slaves, and they did most what they wanted to do by just using their wits. Hanging around the big house, they kept the slave owners laughing. They had to bow and scrape some, but they often was able to draw the least hard task. Nehemiah was the one who believed that if he must be a slave, he best be a smart one. No one who called himself master of Nehemiah had ever been able to make him work hard for nothing. Nehemiah would always have a funny lie to tell, or he made some laughing remark whenever the so called master had a question or scolding. Nehemiah was always being moved from one plantation to another, for as soon as the slave owner realized Nehemiah was outwitting him, he sold Nehemiah as quick as he could to some other slaveholder. One day, the man known as the most cruel slave owner in that part of the state heard about Nehemiah. "Oh, I bet I can make that slave do what I want him to," the slave owner said. And he went to Nehemiah's owner and bargained for him. Now, Nehemiah's new owner was Mr. Wharton, and he told Nehemiah, "Look here, Nehemiah, I bought you. Now, tomorrow, you're going to work for me over there at my plantation, and you're going to pick 400 pounds of cotton a day." "Well, massa," Nehemiah said, "that's all right far as it goes. But if I make you laugh, won't you let me off for tomorrow?" "Well," said Wharton, who had never been known to laugh, if you make me laugh, I won't only let you off for tomorrow, but I'll give you your freedom right then and there." "Well, I declare, massa, you sure a good-looking man," says Nehemiah. "Oh, sorry I can't say the same about you, Nehemiah," answered the slave owner. "Oh, yes, massa, you could," Nehemiah said, laughing. "You could if I told you as big a lie as I just did." Wharton threw back his head and laughed. It was a long, loud bellow. He had laughed before he thought, but true is true and facts are facts, and Nehemiah got his freedom. Folk tales about how slaves got their freedom were told in one form or another and are still told in black families all over this country. They are told in the spirit of a 19th of June celebration, that is Juneteenth, the day on which black people in the South remember emancipation and give special thanks to freedom from slavery. Slaves did not learn about emancipation all at once together. Isolated and scattered all over the South, they heard the extraordinary news at separate times and in different months. But June 19th became the day of freedom for all, Juneteenth. The significance of Juneteenth is very, very great and gives special meaning to all running away, enduring slavery, and end of slavery tales. And that, my dear friends, is the story of how Nehemiah got free. Since it's such a short story, I'm going to read one more, and it's called The Talking Cooter. Say that Jim was a dreamer. He hoped someday to be a free man, but for now he was a slave. Not far from the big house of the slave owner was a pond. Jim liked to sit beside it and think. Some had told him that animals used to talk, and Jim dreamed that someday some animal would talk to him and tell him how to get his freedom. One day, while Jim was right there by the pond, he spotted a big Cuda mud turtle at the edge of the water. Jim picked up a pebble, threw it at the Cuda, striking him on his shell. The Cuda moved aside a little, stuck his head up, and said, "Don't do that again. Let's be friends. Would you like to hear me play my fiddle?" Jim was just shocked when the Cuda spoke to him. He was most near to falling over when the Cuda took a tiny fiddle from under a stone and commenced to play it. Jim just sat there listening and thought he was dreaming. When he came out of his trance, the Cuda had gone. And every day Jim walked over to the pond when his tasks were done. And each day the Cuda would greet him by the pond with, "Good morning, friend. Do you want to hear me play again?" And Jim had found his voice and his wits enough to say, "Yes, indeedy, I do. Good morning to you too, brother Cuda." Just then the Cuda played his fiddle and he sang, "Jim, you talk too much. Run along and find you freedom place." Now Jim was a dreamer, but he was a thinker too. And he thought one day that if he let his owner meet the Cuda, he might get his freedom that way. After all, a talking Cuda was a wonderful thing to hear. So Jim went on back to the plantation. He found the owner and he said, "Massa, I want to tell you about this Cuda down there at the pond." "Well, what about it?" said the slave owner. "Ma," said Jim, "the Cuda can talk. And he don't just talk. He taking out his fiddle and he play on it. Pretty as you please." "Oh, get out," said the slave owner. "You know that's not true." "'Tis too true," said Jim as calm as he could. "He speak to me and play and sing for me nearly every day now." The slave owner had to laugh. "Well then, Jim," he said, "if it's true, I'll give you your freedom. But if it's not true, I'm going to give you the worst whipping you ever had in your life." "That's all right, master. I'll show you," said Jim. "I'll take you down there and you'll see for yourself." So that's what Jim did. He took the slave owner down to the pond. When they got there was no Cuda to be seen. "Huh," grunted the slave owner. He had his whip in his hand and he snaked it good and hard, making a big cracking sound. "Good morning," Jim said loud but not too loud. There was no answer. "Good morning to you, Cuda," Jim said a bit louder this time. No answer again. "Well, I knew it," said the slave owner. "Dang you, Jim, you fooled me with one time too many." And he raised his whip to thrash Jim as hard as he could. Just then they heard music, a fiddle playing nearby. And right there the Cuda came climbing out of the pond. He walked on his back legs and he had that fiddle tucked up under his chin like any old fiddler. He was playing away on it too. "Good morning," he said, and kept on playing. Then he commenced to sing. "Jim, I told you talk too much. Run along and find you freedom place." Maybe Jim did talk too much, but that was how he got his freedom. And that is the story of the talking Cuda. The greatest dream or wish of the slave in the Southland was for freedom. Some of the slave tales show the slave indulging in a wish fulfilling fantasy of gaining power over the owner and escaping from him. But it was rare that a slave won or was given freedom. The talking Cuda is one of many talking animal tales with the motif of the animal refuses to talk on demand. The talking animal is variously a talking turtle or tortoise or talking mule. There are other variants, African versions with talking skulls and bones. And that, my dear friends, is our stories for today. And I hope you enjoyed them. And I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, 5 o'clock on Facebook Live. So be well, and I'll see you then. Peace.